First of all, I'm extremely nervous. I always wanted to, you know, ever since I discovered TED, of course, you always fantasize about being on a TED Talk. And when Andra told me about this, I literally froze. It took me 12 drafts. I think there's a theme. First of all, that we're all very nervous, and that we somehow have an anxiety level which is perhaps higher than in other countries. It would be interesting to see on TED Global if that's the case. Also, we did a lot of talks, a lot of trials. It took me 10 years to become a doctor of political science. Thank you so much for mentioning it. It took me 20 years of activism in civil society in Romania. Ladies and gentlemen, to tell you something that you already have heard this morning. So you, if you want to, you can leave. I have 36 slides. You've heard it. The point of my talk, you heard it beautifully from Bassam this morning. So let me try, without further ado, to tell you how I think that civil society can change Romania for the good. The point about this slide is an actual conversation. I don't know, you weren't even alive then when Bill McPherson, a Pulitzer Prize reporter for the Washington Post, was covering the Romanian Revolution. And he met this guy, Emil, in Timișoara, and immediately after the miners' events, Emil said to Bill, and Bill reported to me, completely enthusiastically, saying, you understand how smart you guys Romanian are, so smart. Look at this amazing formula this guy came to me with, that we're a country, you're in a country that's on the verge of a nervous breakdown, and all you need is a civil society. And I said, yes! I was already on Soros's payroll and then, at that time, so I thought, I'm in the good business. I'm going to help Romanians together invent, we're going to invent civil society, and all of our anxieties will be gone. So 20 years later, actually my data for my PhD are from 2004. 20 years later, here's how we invented civil society. These are the numbers of active NGOs from the Ministry of Finance, those who file balance sheets. I'm not going to give you the details. You're going to see more interesting comparisons of apples and apples. These are just the gross number. 8,069 in Transylvania. These are cumulative figures, right? Keep the regional differences in the back of your mind, please. Okay. So 20 years after inventing civil society, I think this quote really applies to the present time. The truth is that our finest moments are most likely to occur when we're feeling deeply uncomfortable, unhappy, or unfulfilled. For it is only in such moments, propelled by our discomfort, that we are likely to step out of our ruts and start searching for different ways or true answers. And I think Bogdan's Resistance is a perfect illustration of this, of in the depth of our rut, right? Searching for true answers. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is that the time is now for change. And thank you for Bassam for saying it so eloquently this morning. The time is now, and if we don't change, then who? That's not going to happen. Okay. So Rosalind's talk helped me a lot to make this credible. This is an actual social sciences image of a crisis, of development and crisis. So the point I'm trying to make is that in order to figure out how we get back on the upswing, we have to understand how we got here. And how we got here, I want you to consider that it's the effect of an epidemic. Yeah, you heard it right, an epidemic. not in a metaphorical sense, but in an actual sense. An epidemic that has just the same deadly effect as any other, right? It kills. Just think about our statistics of accidents, road accidents, which are, I think, 3 times higher than the European average, if I'm not mistaken. Now, those of you who are familiar with Malcolm Gladwell's work, you will recognize the argument about viral effects in social sciences. There's even a newer book that Catalina actually introduced me to that talks about the viral effects, not just in mass movements of social science, of social groups, but actually in their physical well-being. The example that's most pressing is the example of obesity being viral. Why? Not because people eat by looking at each other, but because the social standards that apply when your friend gets fat and you don't say anything to your friend, then you're not going to say anything to me either if I'm binging eating. And so it spreads by behavioral and by contagion because we are not applying the same social pressure. So the point is, and that's very crucial to Romania, to 2009 Romania, the point is that we need that social pressure, that, excusez-moi, monsieur, at the Paris airport, that we don't see here. This is what the difference is, and this is where we've been in this incredible spiral. Now, those of you who read the book, know that Malcolm Gladwell applies this. Well, actually, let me make a parenthesis. We already intuitively know this, right? So I'm not giving you some cockamamie social sciences from California here. You already know from very regular, strict economics the 80-20 rule that says that 80% of the work in any office is being done by the same 20% of the people, that 80% of the beer being drank in the world is being drunk by 20% of the drinkers, and so on. But the point that Malcolm Gladwell's book makes, which is really interesting, is that it takes much fewer than 20%. Much fewer. It only takes a handful. And that's the fascinating thing about, and I highly recommend, it's been translated in Romanian as you see. I highly recommend because you'll get a whole new understanding of the world we live in if you read this book, and if you read the 3 laws of viral epidemics within social sciences and social movements, which are, it only takes a few, it needs to be sticky, meaning that the idea needs to have adherence, and then the right context. You need the right context. You need to embrace the right context. Think about what is that, we have many such events, but think about just one in which just a handful of people made a whole difference and completely changed the face of this country. And do it fast because you're eating up my time. Fast. Who's going to say? Come on, guys. Ta-da! Okay, they were 100, not even 100 people coming from Berlin and from Paris and coming back to a divided Romania, remember? And coming to change completely everything about this country. These 100 people, they did it, by the way, they did it by, well, let me show you first what they changed. They ended up changing from the way we dress to the way we write. It was very moving last year to go to the National History Museum to see all those texts in Romanian, but with Cyrillic alphabet. I don't know if you've seen them. It gives you goosebumps. I mean, this was 140 years ago, and these guys are responsible for us changing it. Like Ataturk and his people were responsible for Turkey changing its alphabet and its mores, right? So they ended up changing from the dress to the way we write, and even to the way we think. Think about their ideals. Think about democracy, union, unity. Think about all those things. And think about, have you ever read a history book and wonder, how did everyone come to Islas before the internet? Or before, Realitata TV? Viral. They came. And how did these guys change it? They didn't change it by coercion. They changed it by contagion. Because their ideas were contagious. They had an idea, they had a purpose, unity and freedom, right? And solidarity and social justice and getting rid of the Turks. They had a purpose, they had a plan, and they had enthusiasm. They had energy. And they had something else, which it is my belief is still the domain, particularly the domain of civil society, but not only, because increasingly corporations think about the larger good, but they put a larger, greater good higher than themselves. So this is how they did it. They did it not by force, but by persuasion and by inspiration. And they did it because they had this energy that comes from their ideal. Now, these are the 5 dimensions of culture of a Dutch professor called Geert Hofstede. Some of you may have heard of him. And he has 5 measurable ways in which you can distinguish cultures from one another. Power distance meaning how empowered you feel vis-a-vis the decisions that affect your life. Like, how close do you feel to power so that you can tell someone that you feel uncomfortable by the law that was passed, or that you can actually do something to change that decision. Individualism, collectivism goes without saying. Masculinity, femininity is an interesting concept for those of you who didn't do feminist study. It basically says that masculinity is favoring aggressiveness and competition and all that, and femininity is all the cooperation and positive sum game and so on. A very interesting dimension, uncertainty avoidance. It's a very, in scientific terms, that means self-confidence. It means that you're not afraid of the future. You can tolerate a lot of uncertainty because you are sure enough about yourself and about your ability to meet whatever challenge comes your way. And then the last, I think we've seen it in some of the other presentations, long-term versus short-term orientation. And what we find is that there's 2, and notice, think about these dimensions. Because these are not things about culture. We are used to thinking about culture as in Pleshu or Li Chan or great learned men, very few women, of course, and writing great books. This is not what it is about. Look at these dimensions. They're about what? They're about attitude. They're about the way we meet the world. They're about us confronting the unknown, confronting power, confronting each other, about our winning strategies, whether it's aggressive competition or cooperation, is about whether we have a short time horizon or a long time. It's about attitude. It's not really about culture. And when you look at attitude, I'm going to spare you much of the presentation, but when you look at attitude, you can see clearly that there is two particular issues that stand out about attitude. Is to feel empowered. This is what power distance shows. Look, you can see here the lower power distance, meaning the closer people in Sekui feel to power, and the more they feel they have the ability to change the decisions that affect their lives, the more likely they are to associate. Hello? and then uncertainty avoidance index. Meaning that the more self-confident people feel about the future, the more likely they are, the less fearful they are, the most likely they are to associate. Which is a very interesting thing to take, right? And I think in a very interesting way, it makes a point that instinctively Bogdan and his great team, being very good advertisers, sensed on. Right? Which is that if empowerment and self-confidence leads to associativity, to people getting together, then what could it not be that bringing people together, gathering them in a group, leads to empowerment and leads to self-confidence? Now think about it. I mean, this is a very roundabout way in social sciences. You know how we want to actually create straw men and then destroy them and look smart? Well, it's not that. I spent 10 years of my life doing this, but think about it. Now, what is the old boys network, the system of Pile? It's people in a group getting to affect power, right? Feeling empowered. What is, except that in our case, in Romania, it's all the former guys who were in power before. I don't need to explain to you the situation. Same for self-confidence. I mean, we all read about the power of crowds, how people, for the good or for the better, get really energized by people around them. The experiment is that we can find the germs that infect the Romanian social body. Now, thank you, Adi, I think it was, Adrian, for the picture, or Sebi. Thank you. I saw this the other day, and they very kindly provided it to me. It's on the wall down there. So we're thinking, okay, who would be the germs, the good germs, who can infect in a positive way the Romanian social body so that we can tip, so that we can get critical mass and tip, like in the revolution in the 48. So we want action. We want people doing things differently. We want people tapping the, I'm sorry I don't have here the slides of our Mișcați Bunul Simț campaign that we had done this spring. We want people to take action. We want also to create small communities that name and shame. Right? We want to create maps of the new country, of the country in which it is actually worth living in, and create maps where you know which are the good guys, which uphold the standards, where you're met with a smile, where you have a clean bathroom, where they don't spit in your soup because you're turning it back because it's too cold. Your example with the pizza was perfect. We want to actually claim back our country. Let them immigrate. Let them go to Monte Carlo. I don't care. I'm not talking about Mihaela or people that you wouldn't recognize, but let them go to the Bahamas. I want to live in my country, and this is my country, and this is our country, and we deserve better than this. So the only way to claim it back, as the good Romanian wisdom says, the fish rots from the head and gets clean from the tail. Ladies and gentlemen, you are the tail of the fish. So hello, Mr. Future President, whoever you are, let's be coming. Ho ho. All it takes is do this when we see something wrong. To 3 people, those of you who saw the movie, if not, go and see it. Pay it forward. That's all it takes. 3 times a day, or at least once a day. Pay attention. I learned how not to be littering my cigarette packs on the street When I was a teenager growing up in Switzerland, I threw the stagnol, the paper, from my Marlboro pack in the street, and an older gentleman came and gently tapped on my shoulder and said, "Mademoiselle, vous avez perdu quelque chose. You have lost something." So he wasn't arrogant. He wasn't like shouting at me and saying, no. But he applied more social pressure than any police. No policeman can impose a law on saying, "Excuse me," but all of us can. So this is the idea. And I think what I most like about our movement, if I can call it that, is that the noi pașoptiști are revoluționari de optimiști. I think that if there's anything we can learn from the tipping point, is that defeatism and negativity and pessimism is contagious. And we have been too long contaminated in this country. We have been part of this wave of viral attack, of defeatism and complication. And life is much simpler and much more complex than that. And the viral theory tells us that we can have an infection of optimism. And that, ladies and gentlemen, I think is an idea worth spreading. Thank you very much.